What's your I can't believe I'm actually witnessing this moment, Reddit? While in Manhattan, I saw a man in a wheelchair use his umbrella to fight a man on crutches that was using his crutch as a weapon, and 3 other able-bodied guys ran up and started fighting the original 2 guys until the cops showed up. I don't know what started it, but man, it was a sight. I swear this was in South Park. Guy in front of me on the bus got stabbed in the neck while I was looking out the window. I sat there for a second thinking, well, this is really weird. There must be some kind of mistake, like reality had encountered an error or a glitch and would fix itself in a second. Then I ran from the top deck to the bus driver and told him what happened. What happened to the guy? Was he okay? Was at a cabin in the mountains, heard a plane flying over, 5 minutes later hear a crash, we climb up a small hill and look, yep, it's the plane, yep, there's a fire. Fire wasn't put out for about 5 to 6 hours and there was ash everywhere. I have many dreams involving plane crashes. Sometimes I'm in them. Other times I bear witness to them crashing. Sometimes even I have dreams where the pilot is taking off in an urban environment on the streets, navigating power lines and trees and such. Me too. My wife woke me up in the middle of the night, breathing hard and shivering, complaining that she was cold despite her skin feeling seemingly normal. Over the next few minutes she began hyperventilating really bad and talking less and less. I called 911. When I started talking to the operator, something changed in her face that will haunt me probably forever. She was still breathing hard, and looking around, but it was like she had suddenly lost almost all brain function. I vividly remember seeing her eyes, and thinking they looked physically the same, but somehow like all intelligence, or essence of her had been drained. She made no effort to respond to what I said and showed no sign of recognizing me. I thought I was witnessing her death. By the time medics got there she was passed out but still breathing. She made it to the hospital in time for them to stabilize her. She'd had a large kidney stone that created a bad infection, and sent her into septic shock. After a week in the hospital though she was okay, and fortunately I can say that she is alive and well today. We were all eating dinner outside in Spain late at night and a praying mantis flew by. Being from the UK we never really see them, so we all stopped and pointed to look at it, and the ducker just flew straight into my glass of Coke. Like the huge ass bug plopped right in there. We all laughed and I had to get him out and get a new drink. After cannibalizing your husband, you always need a refreshing beverage. r/no context. I saw the conclusion of a high-speed chase. I was driving between work sites and this guy had been fleeing the police for probably 40 minutes. As I was driving down the road I saw this SUV throwing smoke and sparks everywhere coming toward me. His tires were gone and he was only managing maybe 35 to 40 miles per hour. Behind him were countless cops and highway patrol. Some of the cops came into my lane to try and box him in. I slowed down and pulled over just as the guy came to a stop on the other side of the road, almost perfectly parallel to me. The cops came flying out with guns drawn and pulled him out, and I was close enough I could have had a conversation with the guy. A couple other cops on foot walked up to me and one of them told me to get the duck out of there in just that way. Like she was pissed I was still there, lol. Huge adrenaline rush. Chase was all over the news and it was a fun day saying yo I seen that shit bro. Ended right in front of me. All day. I was learning how to drive when I was 16, and we were at the parking lot stage, just driving around the local mall at low speeds. I slowed to a halt in the middle of the road that circles the mall and turned to my mom and said, "What do I do? They don't cover this in driver's ed." The road was blocked by 2 elephants getting a bath. Seriously. It was awesome. Later found out they were in town for the circus, but I had no clue at the time. Best driving lesson ever. This is the second elephant circus tale. Norfolk, Virginia. I saw someone drown in a lake when I was young. I've been afraid of swimming in a large body of water since then. Someone hit a moving fly with a precise pencil strike. No ducking way. One time I was driving through the middle of nowhere and I saw a man and a woman on the side of the road, both of them with their pants down, the woman bent over in the man's arms as he pushed against her. I'm glad he thought to take off his pointy and painful belt before performing the Heimlich maneuver smile. Ha! That made me snort. My daughter and I were driving to the store when we came upon an accident. The truck was upside down on its roof, it had taken the curve in the road too fast. 3 guys were running around the truck bleeding, yelling for the driver to get out. I laid on the ground to see the driver, his neck was at an unnatural angle. Before I checked his pulse and knew he was dead. We rounded up the guys to stay calm until help got there. I didn't tell them the driver was dead. I just couldn't. I kept hoping that EMS would tell me I was wrong. It still haunts me to this day. Sorry to hear this, glad you got there after the wreck and weren't involved in the crash. A few weeks ago on my birthday, my family came over for dinner and cake. It was my sister, her husband, my niece, my parents, brother, and my GF. So we're having a nice time, eating hoagies, subs for those not from Philly, and my newly 2-year-old niece decided to jump on the couch. As my sister headed over to stop her, my niece slipped with a loud bang. She hit her head on the coffee table. My sister yelped and quickly scooped up her daughter. My niece was crying and my sister was trying to calm her. Everything was quiet for a moment, then my sister screamed. She rushed into the kitchen and I looked at my niece's head. There was blood. A lot of blood. We spin into a panic as my sister is hyperventilating. I quickly soak up the blood with a paper towel and notice only a very tiny cut. She didn't even need stitches. My father grabbed some ice and a rag and put pressure on the cut. My brother-in-law took my sister and niece to the hospital as the rest of us cleaned up a bit before heading over. So as we're cleaning, my 14-year-old deaf Cocker Spaniel decided he wanted a hoagie. I glance over to the table, only to see his face slowly taking a hoagie. We all notice and run over to stop him. But that hoagie was no more, only scraps remained. As we were cleaning the scraps, my dog walks back into the kitchen, looks at us, and shits on the floor. What the duck? TLDR, my niece fell, cut her head, family freaks. Old dog takes this opportunity to eat a hoagie and promptly shit on the floor. My niece if fine BTW. Saw a guy in Thailand being chased out of a ladyboy cabaret by some ladyboys in some very impressive cabaret clothes, then followed by the police, in hot pursuit. I was sitting outside a bar a few doors down which happened to be a New Zealand bar, not quite New Zealand themed, just a New Zealand bar with a flag outside, and when he saw that he ran inside and held the door closed. And started shouting out that he was a New Zealand citizen and was now on New Zealand soil, so they had to leave him alone. It didn't work out so well for him. Wow, he must have had access to some really good drugs. That's some translocation shit. Watching Anthony Hopkins walk into my dressing room. He was close with my acting teacher and he had been to see a play he directed. I had a small part and Anthony Hopkins was kind enough to go round all the dressing rooms and meet the actors. He looked like a hologram. I've seen many famous actors at close quarters but never one with the magic he has. He sort of glowed and I learned then the true meaning of the word glamour. It's nothing to do with blonde hair and lipstick and everything to do with a sort of enchantment or magic. Till Anthony Hopkins is a warlock. When I was younger, I watched an 18-wheeler fly off an overpass on the way to a baseball game. It flipped, went up in flames, and shut down the freeway. You could smell the dead bodies from inside my dad's car, across the freeway from the accident. It was a sad, terrifying scene. Other than that, how was the game? Asking the real questions here. I kinda want to know, too. Walking into a house on a social service visit and seeing drug paraphernalia, stuff/clothes all over the floor, trash piled everywhere and dog shit on the floor. Like you literally could not walk without stepping on things. There was no path through the house. There were 2 kids stuck in that situation and I couldn't understand how the parents could care so little. Did the kids get to somewhere safe in the end, do you know? I was in college when my mom called and woke me up. She told me to turn on the TV. I asked, what station? Her response of, any station was eerie. I turned on the TV within 10 seconds of the second plane hitting the towers. I'm British and I remember the standstill it caused. My mate Dolly came out of the school gates talking about an incident with a plane in NY. Went home, wall-to-wall coverage, totally transfixed. The most important event in modern times. Everyone remembers where they were. I saw a farmer in the area where I grew up get attacked by a swarm of angry bees. There was nothing I could do to help him, it was terrible. Damn. What happened? The farmer was attacked by a swarm of bees. A little late to the game, but here it is. I was working in a pet store that was in a not-so-nice area. I was cleaning up the store when I hear a loud commotion out front. I walk out with my buddy just in time to see a car flying up the street with about 10 or 15 cop cars behind it. The car then hits the median right in front of where we are standing and goes airborne, starts flipping in the air, lands on its roof and slides down the street with sparks flying everywhere. Once it stops, the driver jumps out the window, leaving a passenger inside, and takes off running. A shit ton of cops jump out and give chase, cathing him about 30 yards away. They then proceed to beat the shit out this guy. We decided to head back in the store after that. It was like a scene from a movie though, just crazy. Edit. Another weird thing I had almost forgot about. Was in a bar in the middle of downtown Chicago, playing a game of Golden Tee. It was midday when all of a sudden a prairie dog runs in through the front door, behind the Golden Tee machine and then bites the power cord in half. He then ran back out of the bar. What an asshole. I was driving my girlfriend back to my house when it started raining ice. I mean, it looked like rain, but the second it hit the ground it instantly became black ice. I didn't realize this when we started driving and I felt like taking a back road. Bad idea. I start driving up a hill and notice I wasn't able to accelerate, so I shifted down to third, then to second, then first. Suddenly, I'm going backwards. Duck. I turn my wheel just a bit so that my car starts pointing towards the edge of the road. I get my back wheels off the edge of the road, the car stops moving, all seems okay except I'm only about 1 foot from a drop-off into a drainage ditch after a 4-foot drop. Now we're stranded at 7 p.m. in the dark of night, on a side road far from anyone's homes in the middle of an ice storm. Great. Time to call AAA and see if they can tow me out. So AAA says they are sending a truck and alerting the police so they can ensure that it's safe. An old lady drives by and slows down, bad mistake, and rolls down her window and asks if we're alright, and now she's going backwards down this hill too out of control. Victim number 2 has been claimed. Police officer shows up, but realizes what the conditions are like, so he parks in the bottom of the hill and starts calling out to us and we explain the situation. He calls for backup and they block the road so no one can come down. He also calls the town department so they can send in some plows to lay down salt. This is where shit got out of hand. The first plow truck shows up to do the job and he comes from the other end of this road, heading down the hill. I can't believe he was that stupid. So this massive plow truck comes over the crest of the hill, we all cheer as he comes to save the day, until we notice, he's speeding up. Oh shit, he's still speeding up, this isn't gonna end well. Mr. Police Officer is still standing at the bottom of the hill when he sees this massive plow truck flying at him completely out of control. He momentarily becomes a cartoon character and tries to run to safety but is on ice so he just runs in place for a few seconds and promptly falls on his face in the path of a massive snowplow that is now going probably 45 miles per hour. Thankfully, the truck got just enough traction to steer towards the side of the road into a guide rail. This massive truck smashes into the guide rail about 10 feet from the police car, and only maybe 5 feet from the officer now laying on the ground, accepting the fact that he's about to die, and the whole back of the truck lifts into the air 5 feet and the truck stops right there. Everyone is okay. We're all standing there with our mouths agape. Police officer checks on the truck driver, he's totally fine. So they call for another plow. This time, he comes down the hill backwards really slow, spraying salt the whole way. Everything is smooth sailing after that and the tow truck manages to pull us out and I turned right around and dropped my girlfriend at home after being stuck for 3 hours. When I finally got a significant experimental result, after literally years of nothing. I was halfway through year 6 of my neuroscience PhD. It had gone well for the first 3.5 years, and then everything started going wrong. My experiments wouldn't work, and even when they did work I'd get negative results. I needed to have some explanation for the phenomenon I was witnessing in order to publish, and I needed to publish to graduate, and I needed to graduate so I could get a job and finally live in the same city as my fiancée. Everything was going horribly and seemed hopeless. It was a desperate and depressing time. It was just a regular Sunday afternoon in lab when I analyzed the results of my newest experiment and realized it had actually worked. I had a result that not only was statistically significant, but also really interesting. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was so used to nothing but failure. I literally jumped up and down and then started crying. Over the next 8 months I was able to confirm the result, perform follow-up experiments that further confirmed it, publish my paper, finish and defend my dissertation, get a job, move in with my fiancée, get married, and start my life. Complete and utter despondency to incredibly hope and joy by just reading a computer screen saying p 0.05 inches. Golly, everyone's doing very real stories. I not only watched an elephant doing an enormous poo, and it being incredible, but I also watched a giraffe drink another lady giraffe's piss. 2 giraffes 1 anus. I saw body parts and blood scattered across the streets during the Boston bombings. I was eating a sandwich when the first bomb blew up. I'm just glad I wasn't in a close enough distance to get injured. This slow burn of a decline I call my mother. 2012, diagnosed with stage 1 cancer, insanely operable, everyone was hopeful, and within about 5 months became cancer-free. 2 years later, addicted to meds that were still from the cancer she is cancer-free on that the doctor keeps prescribing to her. They are essentially painkillers. She also uses her cancer diagnosis as a crutch to get away with not making payments on time. Week before my wedding day, asks me for $500 like I had it laying around. Sorry, I had a wedding coming up. From what my dad said, it was for more pain meds. Day of wedding, doesn't show up on time for the mother/son dance, instead is outside, drunk and on pills, smoking a cigarette. Currently, taking pain meds like they are candy. For what pain? I have no clue. Has been let go of 3 jobs since this addiction, has lost all emotional affection with my father, and has a grudge against me and all my brothers for reasons we have no clue about. Publicly embarrassed me at the hospital while my grandpa was in surgery for not coming down for Easter. She used to be a very kind-hearted, lovable mother. I always felt like she was jealous of how me and my brothers gained popularity when we were younger in school because of our athletic accomplishments, and for a parent, I always thought that would be a proud moment, but she was always envious. Now, it's a mother I can't stand to be around, and I feel like I'm witnessing a slow death that I cannot do anything about. Thanks for listening to another episode of Reddit X. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any stories. Feel free to share your own stories below in the comments. Have a good day.